Now we know that most chronic diseases have a common underlying factor, which is inflammation. We basically understand now that most chronic diseases like cancer and cardiovascular diseases and all these diseases that are epidemics today in America and all over the world, like the autoimmune diseases and all the hormonal disbalances, they have as a underlying common cause the fact that your inflammatory system is turned on. And there are ways to find out if your inflammatory system is turned on way before these problems manifest as a disease with the collapse of one of your systems. So there's something called the CRP, or C-reactive protein, which is a protein that appears when the inflammatory system is turned on, and that can be measured in the blood. Make sure that your doctor orders a CRP in your next yearly physical. Other tests that can be ordered that come from a way of thinking that is more functional is, for example, your levels of vitamin D. We know now that vitamin D only really appears in your system after exposure to the sun. But we have extracted ourselves from natural environments, and we have protected ourselves from the sun with our homes and our buildings and our clothing and even sun protection creams that are so popular today. Vitamin D is now more considered as a hormone than a vitamin, and it is found that when there is a deficiency of vitamin D, there are many systems that get affected. For example, depression and lack of vitamin D are associated, and in countries where the days are shorter and the summers are shorter, there is a higher incidence of depression. This is in its minimal expression, it's called the seasonal affective disorder, or SAD. And vitamin D has been found to be one of the main causes of seasonal affective disorder and depression. Lack of vitamin D is also associated with osteoporosis. Even if you take huge amounts of calcium, that calcium would not be deposited in your bones if there is not sufficient vitamin D in your system. So drinking lots of dairy products that obviously contain a lot of calcium is not a solution for osteoporosis. In fact, it may be an aggravating factor, because dairy products acidify your blood, and chronic acidity triggers a mechanism by which the bone is recruited to defend your body, to alkalinize your blood by releasing its salts into the blood. Very much like an Alka-Seltzer. The bone gets fizzling and dissolves, releasing phosphorus and calcium into the blood in order to attempt to buffer acidity. So it is more important to alkalinize your blood than to take calcium as a supplement. But without vitamin D, you will ultimately not be able to have strong bones. Vitamin D is also associated with cancer and cardiovascular disease. And it seems like every day we're finding something else that vitamin D and its deficiency are involved in. There are other things that you can test in your blood, like homocysteine. Homocysteine is a waste product from the metabolism of certain proteins that should be cleared by the liver. And when homocysteine levels go up, it becomes toxic, and it promotes heart disease and Alzheimer's. In order for the liver to clear homocysteine, it needs an extra amount of B vitamins. So when there isn't B vitamins floating around for the liver to use, then homocysteine levels raise and your risk of heart disease and Alzheimer's go up. When homocysteine levels are up, supplementation with B vitamins will correct this problem. there is a new category of diseases that did not even exist when I was a little boy. And those are the autoimmune diseases. Autoimmune diseases meaning that your immune system is attacking yourself. Now, how does the body get so confused that a system like the immune system that is there and evolved over thousands of years or millions of years in order to defend you from foreign organisms and objects, how does it get confused and start attacking yourself? And one of the ways to understand that is that when there is gut dysfunction, when your gut gets disrupted, the good bacteria die. They don't protect the intestinal wall anymore. And the new bad bacteria that come and colonize start eroding the intestinal wall and create little holes that end up allowing not completely digested food to go into your bloodstream and then be recognized as a foreign object, and a defense or an attack is generated and built by your immune system. Now, some of these undigested foods end up having a similar surface than some cells in your body, so the immune system that's attacking them gets confused and attacks parts of your body. A very typical example of this is how when somebody is exposed to gluten, which is a protein that comes in certain grains, somebody that has a disrupted gut is exposed to gluten, the immune system that lives in the gut mounts an attack against gluten. And gluten has a very similar surface to parts of your thyroid system. So then your immune system ends up attacking your thyroid and causing all kinds of thyroid dysfunctions. There's a way of measuring this. This is a very early manifestation of a evolving autoimmune problem. These are called the thyroglobulin antibodies, and it's a very simple item to check off in your laboratory request that you can ask your regular doctor or your functional medicine doctor to check in your next blood test. There are other deficiencies that play a role in maintaining vibrant health, and one of them is iodine. Iodine, which is mostly present in the sea and sea products and fish, is now seen to be deficient in most people's diet, ending up years later in thyroid dysfunction. So one of the things that I like to check is the levels of iodine, and there's simple tests that can determine if your iodine reserves are running low. Uric acid, which is usually checked only when people have signs and symptoms of gout, are also helpful in determining your risk of cardiovascular disease, because uric acid is an irritant, and it irritates not only the joints causing gout, but it also irritates your arteries, causing coronary artery disease and ultimately heart attacks. And heart attacks are the number one cause of death in America still. So make sure your next blood order has a request for uric acid levels. Your thyroid activity is measured usually only by requesting a TSH, or thyroid stimulating hormone, but there are ways of measuring thyroid activity that are more fine-tuned. One of the tests that I like to see in my patients is the free T3. The thyroid gland produces T4. T4 is spilled into your blood, where it's converted to free T4, then to T3, and then to free T3, which is actually the only aspect of your thyroid hormone that is active. So you may have a normal T4, you may have a normal TSH, but your T3 may be low. And if this is so, you will be experiencing some of the symptoms of hypothyroidism or sluggish thyroid hormone. And one of the most significant side effects of a sluggish thyroid hormone is the inability to lose weight, something that America is dealing with also in epidemic proportions. So make sure that your doctor knows to order your free T3 on your next test. There is a different type of cholesterol than the LDL and the HDL that we only measure mostly in our yearly physicals. The lipoprotein little a. Lipoprotein little a is associated with a 7-fold incidence of coronary artery disease when it's elevated in your blood, and it's a very simple test to order and a very useful parameter to examine when you are considering the options of what to do with somebody. Should you start somebody on statins, or should you just put them on a lifestyle modification program? So lipoprotein A, which is not a commonly ordered test, should be on everybody's wellness plan list. Last but not least, I want to talk about something that not many physicians today recognize as a health threat, and these are the heavy metals, and more specifically mercury. Mercury is now found to be present in many household products and even cosmetics. Lip gloss and lipsticks contain mercury as a form of conservative. There are also reports that the conservative in certain vaccines for kids contain mercury, and the mercury has been accused of being one of the major causes of autism. And even though it's very debatable, there are some very strong arguments and some strong evidence in favor of that. So mercury today also is abundant in fish. People that love to eat fish and think they're doing something really healthy may be accumulating mercury in their system. Many years ago, silver amalgam fillings in your mouth used to be prepared with mercury. In short, mercury is present in so many of the products that we use daily in our modern life, and the fact that this heavy metal is toxic is only now starting to be recognized. Mercury is called the great mimicker because mercury can mimic any disease. It can present as a psychiatric problem like depression or schizophrenia or bipolar disease. It can be manifested as a malignancy, a blood cell problem like anemia or thrombocytopenia, which is the lack of platelets. Basically, mercury can present as any disease whatsoever. And usually when these diseases come up, one goes to the doctor, a diagnosis is made, and a treatment is prescribed, which barely has anything to do with the fact that this is caused by mercury. So the origin of the disease, the real cause of the disease, is never treated, and people never get better. So finding out what your mercury levels are is very important. Now, bear in mind that just measuring the mercury levels in your blood is not enough. That is only an indication of exposure during the last 3 months. If you have one dose of exposure of mercury and mercury ends up going to your blood, it'll circulate in your blood for a while. And there are two possible end results. Some people have the ability to eliminate mercury from their blood. Some people do not. those that do not have the ability will continue to have levels of circulating mercury that eventually will seep into their tissues and get attached to different tissues. Mostly mercury, like many other toxins, is lipophilic, meaning it loves fat, so it will attach to fat. And your brain is made of fat in 90% of its mass. So the brain is usually affected by mercury. And the only way to really accurately measure the body burden of mercury is to do what's called a 24-hour urine challenge test, in which you give a chelating agent like DMSA or EDTA that will pull this mercury out of your tissues. It will make it water soluble so that it appears in your urine. You collect your urine for 24 hours and you measure the amount of mercury in your urine, and therefore get an idea of your tissue mercury burden. So, as you see, there are many things that you need to take into consideration to make a solid wellness plan, and ways to have the support of a doctor that is at least open to them, or better yet, knowledgeable and experienced. Again, I congratulate you on finishing the CLEAN program. I look forward to hearing your comments and your feedback, and I hope that this will take you in a long life journey of wellness and vitality. Thank you very much.